evening.
Hey, everybody. Okay, I'm assuming we might be waiting for a couple more people, Melanie, do you think? Well, there's Suja. Christy.
Is Christy joined yet? I would just give it a couple more minutes.
Sure.
Oh. Christy's joining as a panelist now.
Good evening.
Good evening. How's everybody doing? Are we good to go?
Good.
Is party off?
I do believe so.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to open up the Economic Development Committee meeting of the City of Hermosa Beach, April 5th, 2021. Could everyone please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right, thank you. Can I please have a roll call?
Chair Campbell.
Here.
Vice Chair Hoffman.
Here.
Committee Member Detoy.
Here.
Committee Member Peterson.
Here.
All are present.
Okay, very good. We'll move straight away to public comments. This is an opportunity for anyone who might be either on our call, logged into our Zoom call, or on the telephone to provide public comment on any matters or matters on the agenda that they may do so at this time for items that are not on the agenda or during the agenda item. I got that sentence right. All right, so let's see if there are any hands up.
We have one hand up and it's Laura Pena.
All right. Good evening, Laura. Can you hear us?
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
We can.
Oh, great. I want to thank everybody for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. Hopefully, I'm hoping to be very, very brief. I just wanted to bring to the attention, because I know that the Economic Development Committee has done a lot to help upper peer businesses, not only just upper peer, but the entire business community. And I really, really appreciate it. But I just wanted to let people know that we are in a situation in upper peer where the outdoor dining decks are becoming a real problem for a lot of the service businesses. And I have communicated as much as I possibly can to let people know that we need help. We have several of the restaurants that have their dining decks empty. They're still in a process of, I guess, putting them forward. And we need to find a solution now that the restaurants are able to operate indoors, where it could be a win-win situation. Because what I don't want to see happen is this inequity happening. And it really is. A lot of our customers, patrons in the upper peer service businesses, they are literally having problems finding parking. And so I'm hoping that at some point we can address this. It would be helpful if the city, with many initiatives that I know that they're working on, could be more transparent and let the community know where we're at. I know I've mentioned in several meetings and in emails about allowing music in the outdoor dining decks. I don't know where we're at on that. And so if there's any way that we could do maybe on the city website, where we're at on certain initiatives, certain things that are in process, that would be really, really helpful, because I would love to be able to communicate with the businesses on Upper Pier that, you know, the city's working on it. They are a partner with us, and they want to find a win-win situation. So I'm hoping that we can work together and come up with a solution, because the service businesses are really suffering with the outdoor dining decks being placed in front of their businesses, and their patrons are having issues with finding parking. And for a lot of us service businesses, it's very, very difficult and challenging to have our customers, patrons park elsewhere. This is not just me. There are a lot of businesses that are experiencing this. So I just hope that we can come together and come up with some solutions. And I am available at any time to discuss anything. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, I was muted. Thank you, Laura, for being here to share this input. And I do not see any other hands up. Again.
I don't see any hands up, but I see someone unmuted.
Okay, very good. If there's someone on the line, you just can unmute yourself by pressing *6 and speak up with letting us know you're there.
I think they've muted themselves.
Okay.
That might have been a mistake.
All right. One more call just to see if there's any public comment at this time. And now would be your opportunity to either raise your virtual hand or to press *6 on your phone and let us know you would like to speak. All right. Okay. I will go ahead and close public comment. We'll move forward with our agenda. Get that back in front of me. And next is item number 5, approval of the minutes from the March 1st meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by a nose from Mayor Pro Tem Detoy. And is there any questions or discussion about the minutes before we call a vote? Seeing none, I think we can call a vote. Melanie?
Chair Campbell?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hoffman?
Aye.
Committee Member Detoy?
Aye.
Committee Member Peterson?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Now moving right along to agenda item number 6. Chamber of Commerce Business Survey presentation. I'm going to pass this one to Christy Teague, who's going to set this up. Christy.
Good evening. So I'm very pleased to introduce to you tonight on our agenda, Jessica Acamando, who's the President and CEO of the Hermosa Beach Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce recently conducted a business survey of its members and the greater Hermosa Beach business community. And the results came in last week, and we're proud to introduce Jessica to present the findings from the business survey. So Jessica, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, do we need to enable her camera? Do you want your camera enabled, Jessica?
Sure, I'm happy to.
Yeah,
It's just to you. I mean, really, I did make myself presentable, but you're not forced to look at me. So the choice is yours. By
I
all
would
means.
love to see your smiley face, Jessie. Anytime would be a good time. And I know that when we do this in regular council meetings, that there has to be just someone to allow you to control your.
Yeah, I don't know if we have that function, but I can promote you as a panelist. So just 1 second.
No worries.
Can't just let anybody come off their camera.
You know, all right. I think I'm here now.
There you are. Very good.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate, you know, I'm a little intimidated by the term presentation because I was invited a little bit late last week, but I'm thrilled to be here and give you a little overview of what's been happening at the chamber, and by all means, share with you some of the results of that survey. I believe a lot in, asking everybody and collectively gathering data. I'm a data person, so I think everybody in here probably is as well. So, but to give you a little overview, I'm sure everybody's gonna be a little surprised how quickly time has flown by. It's been 2 months now that I've been in this position. They've gone by very fast. My focus has been on, no surprise here, listening and speaking to the businesses. I've been on I like to say, listening tour. And building relationships. I've spoken to stakeholders in the community, business owners, most of you in this room, actually, and just literally everybody I can speak to try and get everybody's direction, ideas, interest, and really hear everybody's perspectives. We're also focused on reshaping our marketing strategy, particularly as we're coming out of a pandemic, really focused on how we can service our business community. And I'll talk a little bit about that when I talk about the survey results, because I think they go hand in hand. I want to talk a little bit about, we have, as part of the marketing strategy, I've launched, the chamber has launched a new beach bulletin newsletter that goes out to the community. The first one went 2 weeks ago. The second one will go out this week. It's bi-weekly. We are hoping that the community really embraces this communication. If there's anybody that's listening tonight or watching who doesn't know about this, you can easily sign up for it on the Chamber's website. It's hbchamber.net. The Beach Bulletin is a community newsletter as a community service of the Chamber to communicate activities going on in the community, offerings from our local businesses, updates that are happening, new businesses in town, new members of the Chamber, happenings and updates on the pandemic and COVID updates. And we're really looking to be a resource to the community, even more so than what you might regularly expect from a Chamber newsletter. So I hope folks, give us a little feedback on that. And we've gotten great feedback, but we welcome more if folks have ideas of things to add to that. I want to report back the stakeholder group. Everybody I speak to is grateful for that group. The businesses as a whole really feel that what we've developed and begun there really gives the community a voice, and we've seen great forward progress there. Christy has been invited to our most recent board meetings. I feel like we started at the same time here, Christy, with this. So, and she's been presenting there, and we really feel like we've been engaged in a part of the process of really making sure that we're working as a team, and we look forward to forward progress in that effort. So I just wanted to really say that's been a really highlight in reporting back to you some good parts. Marketing wise, I really want to let you know that a priority at the Chamber will be in helping brand the city, particularly as we move forward and focus on marketing the Chamber. We really want to brand the city around what kind of visitors we want to see, and also what the residents want to see from our business community. I put a lot of time pre-Chamber days, really coming together with the community to support local, and that effort, we want to see that continue. At the same time, we really need to build up our visitors bureau, and we really want to make sure that what people's impression of Hermosa Beach is really what Hermosa Beach is. We don't want them to think of it as one thing. We want them to really have an impression of Hermosa Beach as this outdoor lifestyle experience, right? You come to surf, you come to the beach, you come for our magnificent restaurants this outdoor dining experience. You come for the music, the history of music, and the existing music. We have amazing talent in town. We have amazing artists in town. We have amazing retail space in town. And we want to push that out there and share that and get people to come to town. And we want our residents to be proud of that experience in town. And so we're going to be focusing and through our social media marketing and other marketing on sharing that branded experience going forward. I also want to report to you that the chamber's growing, and you know, we feel in large part this is due to the businesses really being excited about having a collective voice, and the businesses coming together to really be able to have collective interest and speak and represent themselves and advocate for issues that we really feel are important. We have, since I began, we have 38 new members, and I'm pretty excited about that. And our member benefits have expanded and evolved. A lot of that comes from, the expanded list is in promotion of businesses to visitors and residents. We're doing a lot of focus on including our community in our targeting and communicating, and really relying heavily on the local community and realizing the importance of supporting local and being local and embracing that whole feeling. So on to the survey, I want to share with you, we asked it was a very short survey. I just wanted to come in and get a sense of the businesses. The board really wanted to top level gauge where folks were. You know, we had this rough year and we wanted to see how they were doing, how they felt about some top level issues that is no surprise to you folks in this room, and then ask a few chamber questions. So there were 7 topics. One, how are they recovering in this pandemic? What is their biggest challenge or concern? What they think about the outdoor dining experience, what they thought about the lane reconfiguration, what issues they wanted to see the city address. And the list of topics we provided for that question were direct list of items from conversations in our stakeholder group. And what they think about Fiesta Hermosa. And last but not least at all, because it directly relates to what I'm working on, is what they want to see most from a chamber. And so before I show you some of those results, we provided areas, after each of those questions, we provided areas for businesses to give context or feedback or elaborate. For example, if those answers that we provided didn't apply to them, please tell us how, what answers you might give, or expand on your answers. And so there was some really great feedback there, and I followed up on businesses. Nothing super surprising, but really great feedback. I was really touched by the quality of engagement from our businesses. They really feel heard, and I respect that. We had a total of 127 responses, and 85 of those were members of the chamber. So it's important, if I didn't already say, we opened it to the entire Hermosa business community, not just chamber members. Obviously, we want to hear from everybody. We want everybody to join the chamber, but we want to have wanted to have feedback from everybody, not just chamber members. And we gave them 1 week to reply. For anybody who's ever done a survey, you want to have a tight time frame. So we did 1 week. And so with that, am I allowed to share this graphic? Do I have sharing permissions here? I'd love to share it. I think I do. Here we go.
Settings. So there. Yeah.
There we go. All right. So I'll go over this just a little bit here. So the pandemic affected folks. 32% sadly are still down in their sales for their business, but 42% are recovering. And so, while 42% is a really great number, the 32 number is still a number that we should keep in mind. That's a third of our businesses in town are still struggling to be on, on the new curve coming back up. I can take some questions and elaborate on some of the other numbers that aren't on this infographic afterwards. So I'll just go over these and then we can talk about some of the other numbers. The question about outdoor dining decks, 80%, which added together the question about keep them permanently or at least a year, 80% of them said to keep them, wanted to keep them. So again, that's either permanently, which was 64%, or at least a year, which was 16% wanted to keep outdoor dining. So that's a huge number. That's why I made it so big there. It's a pretty popular topic. In terms of the question, topics the city should address, again, the outdoor dining decks, but I was maybe not surprised because music and Hermosa go hand in hand, but happy to see that music in Hermosa is a hot topic. Folks want to be able to have this outdoor dining experience and be able to have music be paired with that. And wayfinding and directory, I can give you the full language of what the question asked for this, but it basically covered the topic of providing wayfinding or engaging and directing visitors and residents to other parts of town and providing signage and direction to various locations in town, improving that. And number 4, lighting. You know, we've talked about wrapping the lighting around the palm trees here in Hermosa Avenue and general lighting, just improving lighting at night. Lane reconfiguration, hot topic in town. This 63% number, again, like the 80% above, combined the 2 top answers, which was to keep them as long as the dining decks stay or permanently. So this 63% number added those two top numbers together. The waiting to reserve opinion was 17%, and the change back when they expire, 20%. Now I want to let you know that we displayed this specifically for the Pier and Hermosa Avenue businesses only. And I can, after this, I can give you those numbers specifically for all businesses. But for the purpose of this infographic, we wanted to share the numbers just for those businesses as we thought they might be most relevant to the businesses that were directly impacted. And then Fiesta Hermosa, everybody's favorite summertime topic. We were very happy as the chamber is dependent on some funding from Fiesta Hermosa, happy that the top answer in the top 3 answers was that it positively affects their business. But of course, the first answer is it's time for some change. And I don't think anybody's surprised by that. We at the chamber also agree it's time for some change. And we got a lot of great feedback from that. And so I think everybody's in agreement on that. But that it affects their business positively. We were happy to see that. And number 3, more local business involvement. And I don't think there's any surprise there for that response. Everybody now wants to be, to focus on this local involvement and local engagement. And I think we all want to see a little bit more of that going forward in everything that we do. So with that, I'm happy to entertain some questions. I'm happy to give some more results from the survey. Any answers or anything you have for me from that?
Jessica, thank you. I'm sure there are questions. Let's see. David Peterson has his hand up.
Yes.
Commissioner.
Yes. How are you? Jessica, thanks for being here tonight. I appreciate your energy, and I've said that before to you privately, but publicly, I'm glad you're aboard and see the positive changes. I had a couple of questions, and you don't have to put the graphic up, but I was curious in terms of the percent of participation that was, restaurant, downtown bar, restaurant. I mean, because the responses we got were consistent with that. So keep decks permanent, more music, the Fiesta is a positive for my numbers. That sounds like a restaurant bar in sort of core downtown. That may not sound like other parts of town or others. So not to put you on the spot, but I'm curious
No.
how that gets sampled out.
Certainly.
And just before just to interrupt you one last time. I mean, we heard Laura Pena's comment early, and I understand and hear frustration. And so that was kind of I wasn't surprised to hear that comment eventually a little earlier than I thought, but how you sort of, keep everyone happy when it's really hard to keep everyone happy in a town that's laid out like this. So that's kind of the genesis of my question. And anyway, I'll shut up and let you talk.
No worries. And I probably could have gone back and done a little math. I didn't break out the business type. I didn't ask. You always, hindsight, right? You always wish you'd asked business type. So then I could have quickly sorted by business type and provided that. That said, I did ask, business name. So I could go back. But because I did do that, I can tell you that the bulk of Pier and Hermosa Avenue businesses were a variety of businesses. They were not all restaurants that replied. There were a couple that were not thrilled. Actually, I can't recall a lot that said no to the dining decks, but you're asking me off the top of my head. But most of the comments that I read and most of the conversations that I've had are not that folks are against the outdoor dining. It's that they wish that the dining wasn't taking away from their parking. So anybody that, nobody's against the outdoor dining. In fact, I have yet to meet anybody that doesn't like the outdoor dining. They simply don't want it to hurt their business. Yeah. So, but I can tell you there was a good variety of businesses, and I'm thinking Upper Pier particularly. I heard from most of those. There's a couple salons up there we got responses from. They were included in those survey results.
Okay, good. I was curious on that. And then just second question, and that'll be my last one, is there was a comment there about music in Hermosa, which can mean, DJs inside in a bar. That can mean a guy playing banjo at the pier yesterday who actually was really good. I gave him a couple bucks. I'm a fan of the public placemaking, outdoor buskers type vibe. How granular was the music question, or was it just a general more versus less?
The question, actually, now I want to give you a very specific answer. So let me pull it up really quickly, and I can answer that question for you. The question actually specifically asked, music in Hermosa, outdoor, ambiance, permitted, etc. So it was pretty broad. That said, in my conversations, again, I've spoken to a large amount of these businesses, and I have had a lot of conversations about music. The topic that comes up a lot is hiring folks to play the guitar on their patio, hiring local musicians who have been out of work the last year to play entertaining music while diners are eating. Entertainment, I don't think we're talking about like big noise making entertainment. We're talking about the talent that everybody knows in town to be playing on the patio at Java Man, to be playing on the deck, at Hermosa Brewing Company, to be entertaining while eating. I mean, I think that's the sound that that's what I've been hearing. Okay,
good. Well, you've been hearing that from me too, but I just want to understand what your survey asked. So with that, I will, again, thank you for your energy and yield back to the chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Peterson, I think Mayor Pro Tem had his hand up as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jesse, for that presentation. My question was also along Dave's lines about the business breakdown. So I'm sure that we can get that information in the future. That'd be great to get those specific stats. So thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Commissioner Hoffman, do you have any questions for Jesse at this time?
What's that about great minds? No, my initial question was also a sampling question regarding, as Dave pointed out, but I hope that, not to jump ahead here, that when Doug is presenting tonight, if he is, we can talk a little bit more specifically about parking numbers, see where we get with that.
Okay. Very, very good. Looks like it would be great to get a copy of the graphic available. I know it was sent around. So is it on the chamber website as well?
I actually haven't posted it on the chamber website yet, but I certainly will. I did circulate it to some folks at the city and the chamber board, and I can absolutely send it to everybody here. It's now public information, so happy to distribute it to everybody. You know, I saved it a little bit once I knew I was going to be presenting tonight, so it would be a little bit of excitement to the meeting tonight. So happy to share. I really appreciate everybody inviting me to present tonight. I'm thrilled that action is happening in town. We really want to try and preserve. Look, we want everybody to be happy in town, right? We want the residents, our locals, to want and patronize our businesses, eat outside, listen to some music, and everybody be happy, and there be parking for folks to, you know, get their hair done. And look, I also get my hair done here, so I appreciate all of that. We want everybody to be happy, and I represent all businesses, so I care about those parking issues as well. And so we hope that you guys work on that and figure that problem out. But we want folks to continue to come back to the chamber, engage with us to get those topics so we can group together, come to the stakeholder group together, and continue to work in this partnership.
Awesome, except for I have some questions too.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. It's what happens when you're directing the meeting. You forget. Some of them are just really quick comments, and I have some questions, even though I talked to you not that long ago. So I realized I didn't ask you even half the things that I've been thinking about. One is, first of all, thank you for stepping up into this role. It's very important at a very important time, and you're doing the right thing by getting to know everyone and just really, really listening. Couldn't be more important. So thank you for all that time spent so far. It occurs to me, because we run into this a lot, and anyone's been hanging around governing in any city, but certainly here in Hermosa Beach will know what I mean immediately, is that when you're talking to businesses, it's notoriously misunderstood where the city role starts and stops and where the chamber role starts and stops. And I'm going to throw in too, because it's a separate question, the status of the downtown Hermosa Beach Association, which was kind of like a sidecar, a different group than the chamber. Can you, so my first comment, and it's for the staff as well, but for the chamber, since we've got so many reasons to kind of re-educate the community, our community, and our current and future business community, is to really work together to kind of clarify how we work together. Because I think as they have more insight and they understand that better, there'll be less noise and friction and unintended, you know, kind of bumps in the road. And it'll just be a great service to all the units. So do we know, have we heard anything specific from the Downtown Hermosa Beach Association about the status of their group?
Oh, yes, very active. Very active. I actually just met with them, I want to say 2 weeks ago. We're now working, I think I can comfortably say, in partnership. We at the chamber have a committee dedicated to the downtown, the DHBA, to work in partnership with them. We are co-presenting a next candidate forum next week. Oh my gosh, that's happening so fast. I believe I'll be attending their meetings. They have members as part of the chamber. You know, we're just going to work together going forward. So they're active and still very much meeting and chatting.
Great. And for anyone listening or who wouldn't know, they have been specifically focused on certain kinds of business promoting things and marketing and all kinds of stuff. And there's an opportunity, and I was just wondering if it's come up at all yet, Jesse, in any of your conversations, for having, a distinctive group that focuses on one corridor or the other, whether it be aviation, a different group to focus on revitalizing, that segment, or, way down south Hermosa,
It-
North Hermosa.
It's like you're setting me up. We also have a new committee formed this year at the Chamber called the Aviation and PCH Committee, very unique name, focused on issues that don't relate to the downtown group, just to make sure that we're covering topics that relate to businesses in that corridor, and may address topics in other corridors as well, Cypress and non downtown businesses. They've already had a meeting, and it was an amazing meeting, as you can imagine and already know. There's some amazing businesses and business owners and active and vocal business owners, even in our stakeholder group, in those corridors, and they are leaders in our committee. I'm very happy to report, and are engaged in some great conversations. And so we have begun in that path.
So great to hear. I think that's wonderful. And yeah, there was a big conversation. It might have been our last meeting about aviation opportunity, especially. Okay, my next question, because I recall hearing this or seeing it, or maybe you told me, but right now you're in a half-time role, and formerly it was a full-time role. Is that a result of no fiestas for a while, or is there any clarity about where this is going for, the quote unquote president, CEO of the Chamber in Hermosa?
Yes, well, the Chamber definitely needs a full-time president, CEO, and definitely needs more staff. I mean, we might be a small town, but we have a robust business community, and I have made a full docket of projects and ideas, enough to fill plenty of people. With that said, we are part-time because budget is a little constrained right now due to the pandemic and due to some canceled events that we received some funding from. Our dues are very affordable, and they don't sustain a full chamber budget. With that said, I've been doing the best I can with the situation that I have. I have no complaints. I came into this role knowing exactly that it would be a part-time position, and the board is very aware, and in fact, the board comes to me all the time and says, stop working, because they know that I will just keep going. But I just have so many ideas that I want to get done. So with that said, it's not a long-term plan. It is short-term, and as soon as we can, I'm working on some funding projects and some new ideas. We will go back to normal.
Great. Thank you for that. I've been curious about what the thinking was there. 38 new businesses have joined in the last month or two?
2 months.
2
months. 2 months.
Congratulations on that growth. And it caused me, you said something when you were talking about the survey. How many total business members, if you can hear moaning, it's my dog jumping up on my lap. How many total members?
We are now at 270, I want to say. We are now equivalent to where we were 2 years ago. So we have recovered. But I don't want to brag, because I really genuinely believe that our membership dues are so affordable, and we offer now, particularly our member benefits are now listed on the website. We provide so much value in promotion of business. One thing that I didn't show on that graphic is the question we asked: what do you want to see most from your chamber? And the top three items that folks wanted to see. One was promotion among residents, promotion among visitors, and a collective voice when communicating with the city. So I mean, I feel like that's exactly what we're trying to do. And so we provide the most value, bang for your buck in your membership, if you will, in joining. So I really feel like there's so much ample opportunity. Folks just need to know what it costs to join and that they should join and what they get for it. And they would immediately sign up. A lot of folks, I let them know and they're like, oh, totally, I'll totally join. So
Good, good. More voices in, more participation. I know it's early and we're not out of the woods by any stretch. Is there anything you can share with us related to how the chamber will approach the questions and the process going forward around the decisions around the Fiestas or changes to the Fiesta? Like, I know it's not all decided, of course, but, or even, when we can get back on track, but is there even anything to share about the approach to that yet?
There's literally nothing decided. So, but to be fair, it's literally the first thing everybody asks. And I think if I could share with you anecdotally and from the survey entry responses, not everybody typed in. I'm sorry, I've got a reflection on my face if you're seeing floaty things. Not everybody typed a response on Fiesta, but from the folks that did, if I collectively take all the input in the conversations that I have, most folks want to see, and even from the chamber board conversations, most folks want to see the tradition of Fiesta stay, but want to see that it serve in a Hermosa way. I don't even know how to express that better. We in town like to use that term a lot, right? We like to say, that something is so Hermosa. We're not Manhattan, we're Hermosa. And we want to say that same thing about Fiesta. A lot of folks will make reference to the hometown fair, which is a wonderful fair. I have nothing bad to say about it, but it's not Fiesta. And that's the first thing they'll say to me. Well, I don't want it to be hometown fair, but like how hometown fair is a fun thing for residents to come to, we want it to be a fun thing for residents to come to. We want them to. We also want visitors to enjoy coming, and we want our restaurants to be super excited that it's coming because it gives people the opportunity to try their food. And we want the retailers to be super thrilled because it's a great sales weekend for them. And we want, the rest of the businesses to be excited to see the folks walking through town and trying Hermosa for the first time, or maybe they come twice a year and, visit and so forth. So I have no details whatsoever on what it's going to look like in the future. And a part of that is a conversation, with the city that we're going to be having. And obviously, if it happens in the fall, part of that is health department and a bunch of other things. But who knows what it will look like. But I do know for sure that everybody in town really wants to keep it something where everybody gets to have a part of that, and it keeps a little bit of everybody in it. It keeps it Hermosa. I don't know how else to say that, but
no. And I thank you for that. Just kind of putting it all on the radar. And I know you probably know that there were some very good participation in some, I guess they were study sessions. We had a subcommittee on Fiesta a few years back. So there's a lot of that standing input. And I just think we're at such a different time. There's such a great opportunity now because people want to know what weekends it should be on, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to be great to get into that conversation. Looking forward to that.
Me too.
And that's it. I will torture you more later, I guess.
It's definitely not torture, especially when we talk about Fiesta. It's definitely not torture. I've been attending Fiesta for a very, very long time. I enjoy the conversation a lot with folks. There's just a lot of stakeholders and a lot of people that care a lot about it. And I'm literally just the person that tries to facilitate everybody's interest and make sure that everybody gets it, while at the same time trying to make a little bit of money so the chamber still exists. So, you can ask me all the questions you want, but I'm literally trying to make sure everybody's interests are met. So I welcome it.
Yes, most definitely worth this much conversation, I think, because it's been a lot of fragmentation in the past all over the place, not
Yeah.
just with the chamber. So we're all coming together. We've got this body now, so it'll be a stronger foundation.
Yes.
All right. Anything else? Any final thoughts before we let Jessica go about her evening? Seeing none. All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
I appreciate the time. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. You too. Okay, that was 6, and that means we're moving on to 7, the Stakeholder Advisory Working Group, and passing it back to Christy.
Yes, hello. So I wanted to talk about our Stakeholders Advisory Working Group. And first of all, I want to welcome a new member of the Stakeholders Advisory Working Group, who is Bob Jones. He's on our call. He is the Economic Development Chair for the Hermosa Beach Chamber of Commerce. He's been involved in a long time. He's on the list of the Plan Hermosa Advisory Group. He's a business consultant by trade. And before we actually formed our Economic Development Committee, Ken and I had been having a series of conversations with our local SCORE representative of how we can be more business friendly. And he's been a big part of those conversations, those pre-conversations to our EDC meetings. So I'm very proud to include him. And he joined us for the first time at the last stakeholders meeting. So welcome, Bob.
Awesome. Bob, I see your name. Do you want to say hello, or do you have a...
Thank you very much. I'm honored and pleased to be involved in the stakeholders group. I've been watching it closely. I read the minutes, and so I know what's been going on. And I like to stay in the background, but I'm very pleased and honored to be involved. So thank you, Christy.
As someone who went through Leadership Hermosa Beach with Bob Jones, I'm very happy Bob is here with us as well, joining the efforts.
Good.
Thank you, Mary.
Yes, good. Thank you. We're glad to make him officially on the team. He's been our cheerleader and proponent in the background for about a year. So we're glad to bring him into the fold. So the next thing I want to talk about is our stakeholder meetings in March. And as you recall, in February and in March, our topic was gateways and corridors. And we have had some great conversation. And I was happy to hear it also spurred a new committee of the Chamber of Commerce. But so I'd like to kind of summarize some of the comments from our last 2 meetings. At the March 3rd meeting, which was attended by Chair Campbell, we talked about, first we went over the Plan Hermosa summary because it talks about corridors specifically. Plan Hermosa talks about aviation corridors specifically and PCH specifically. So we talked about how we can translate that into economic development strategies that could help move the Plan Hermosa goals forward and meet the needs of those businesses. So some of the comments include, somebody said aviation has great potential and so much more could be done to beautify the area. Aviation feels like a forgotten area of the Hermosa Beach community, was said. Some older or neglected businesses could benefit by paint, and perhaps a facade improvement program could be established. Somebody said that the corridor business owners feel left out with a lot of focus on Pier Avenue. Attracting new businesses would help improve the corridor. Foot traffic from locals would benefit aviation businesses, and some of the aviation lots could be ripe for reinvestment, and a facade improvement program or even pride of ownership is also considered reinvestment, not necessarily new reinvestment, but potentially that too. Would like to see an energized beautification initiative and traffic slowing on aviation. Chamber of Commerce is a partner to help for a potential initiative. Corridors are important, and aviation is different than PCH with different solutions needed. And then at the March 17th meeting, which was attended by Mayor Pro Tem Mike DeToy, there were actually 15, which is the most stakeholders that attended this meeting, and it was more robust conversation. And talking about, there was so much interest and discussion, partly because it was a new topic and it warranted all these meetings for the discussion. So some of the comments that were said included Aviation Boulevard in Redondo Beach appears more soft or green than in Hermosa Beach. Aviation and PCH are different. Both business districts include some beautiful and others not maintained. Aviation would benefit from beautification with added landscape. It would also benefit the surrounding neighborhoods as well as the business districts. PCH is a state highway with fast traffic at 40 to 50 miles per hour. Aviation is more local street that belongs to the city or under the control of the city. There were comments about there could be directories with QR codes for wayfinding on both the corridors. That would be for pedestrians. There was a comment PCH at North 190th, the stop sign and the light should be adjusted so traffic won't back up. And discussion of a potential new grant for asphalt art that came up. It was talked about applying for the streets, the crosswalks along Aviation Boulevard that are parallel to the boulevard for beautification. There was also a comment that beautification should include ugly electrical utility boxes on the sidewalk. There was discussion about painting them or wrapping them with a decorative image as an inexpensive beautification effort. Banners were recommended, and it was mentioned that this had been done in downtown as part of an art walk event a few years ago that was sponsored by the chamber, and that the banners had art that said shop, eat, stay, and play on them. Then there was discussion about how much that costs, and there was good commentary around that. And banner beautification program could have an art contest. It could seek sponsors. So those were good comments. And that is kind of the end of our work on the corridors and gateways. And so wanted to share that with you and then talk about what our topic should be for the stakeholders to work on for potential strategies to bring back to Economic Development Committee next month. And I had made a note of a recommendation, but I want to hear from you to either confirm or suggest something that we should be focusing on instead. But I would suggest that the topic be music and entertainment. And this is also something that came up with the chamber, but it's been talked about a lot in our stakeholders groups. We had talked about in this meeting, the two facets of music, and one is the ambient music for the outdoor dining, but also kind of a regular music program with identified locations and possible programming or guidelines for that. And it's been talked about, but it hasn't really been worked on. And so also we've had some interesting music related things that have been going on in Hermosa Beach. First of all, recently the Planning Commission and the City Council voted to continue the pilot program for the limited live entertainment, which was designed to be a low impact entertainment option for businesses around town on the inside of the properties. And between COVID and maybe a lack of awareness in the business community, that hasn't been taken advantage of. So that's something that we can talk about with the stakeholders as an option to add some live entertainment that's low impact. Also, with the purchase of the lighthouse, we have heard that they plan to continue the jazz tradition there. And there has been talk about, what was going to happen with the new ownership, and that was reported to us, which is good news. And then also we had reported to us that St. Rock, the live music venue on PCH, has also been purchased, and that the intention is to continue the live music at that location. So there's just a lot going on with music and entertainment. It seems to be a focus of a lot of conversations. So it seemed time for us to get to work on it, and as perhaps including part of our economic development strategy. So, or other topics as you determine.
I know I have some thoughts. I'm gonna look to my colleagues, see if they have any questions for Christy or suggestions for topics. Or questions about what she shared. Yeah, Mayor Protem.
Thank you. Yeah, no, she read my mind. I thought that was going to be a great topic, especially with the chamber results and with all the changes in our local music venues and paired with our music history. I think it's a great conversation to have and see where the business community wants to take it, whether it is a busking route or if it's more, expansion in the limited, low impact music inside each business. So I think it's going to be a good conversation for the stakeholders to kick around.
Good. Thank you.
The thoughts? Yes, Commissioner Hoffman.
I two things. I just got a text here. Dave has lost his internet connection. He didn't just give up on us. So he's coming back, he says. But I would second what Mike said in terms of I think the music it has been a recurrent theme that we have never taken action on. It would be curious to hear. And again, particularly from those who are not directly affected. In other words, from the business, the service industry, and others that are not directly affected by it, as well as the bars and restaurants. So I'm also good with that.
Awesome. Okay, Dave's not here, so Christy, I just had one question about the corridor conversation, and I don't know if it's come up, but it occurs to me. And we did receive a fairly thoughtful email from a constituent who lives in our city about, all things economic development. And one, it was Claudia Berman. And one of the things she raised was like whether or not we have a comprehensive database of every single business and where it exists in town, not just a list of businesses, but by area. And some, maybe even build out some details like what's the square footage. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there. If you had like a comprehensive sense of what was where, what was the status of it, what was the potential for it, and so on and so forth, and maybe how it was, what the CUP status is or whatever. It came up in my mind when you were talking about the corridors because you said there was a lot of opportunity up there. And as we've all seen, there's been a lot of businesses go out, even though we've had a number of businesses just open up during the pandemic. I don't know how best to approach that, but it strikes me that if we're going to focus on corridor development and how to coordinate that kind of information would be really, really useful. Otherwise, we're talking outside of an awareness of kind of what we're dealing with and what the status of what we're dealing with is. So I put that kind of to the staff to direct whatever this group or the chamber or the stakeholder group, if it's a topic for the stakeholders to tackle, I'm not sure where it best lies. But and then the other thing about the aviation corridor, which has gotten a lot of attention, maybe as one place to focus attention first. I would agree with that if that's the case. And that if they're going to get together and work on that, I wonder if it should have like a more, like I'm pretty big on initiatives having like a name. Like you had in fact, I had a question about the business friendly initiative. So it implies that there is a kind of a multi-pronged effort and attention to the whole picture that is, you know, the equation of stuff that is touching the businesses. Maybe with the aviation, it's almost like a makeover, you know, new corridor makeover. I'd say that just tongue in cheek, but you get the point. And for anyone who's going to maybe be at the next meeting, maybe we could pass that on if they're not listening, those who would be involved in that conversation, because I think it would generate more excitement, more interest, more kind of fun community competitive feel. Like if I don't know if the chamber could be involved in that and with some fun ideas for how to highlight. The aviation corridor, as many have said before, certainly not just me, is an entryway from like the freeway to Hermosa Beach. There's zero sign when you get to PCH. There's not a sign that says go right to go to Pier Avenue or to get to the pier. So I think it's a very important area of attention, and it deserves not a quiet initiative, but a loud one that gets everybody rallied. And I'm remembering, I think it was Anthony Morrison who was sort of showing up in the conversation last time as kind of really excited about helping to spearhead that. So I wanted to pass that along. And then you brought up a great point. I want to underscore it and figure out if we need to help in any way and work with the chamber to help. But the limited live entertainment permit was a huge win. There was a group that worked for over a year trying to get that, you know, thread that needle. And I personally think that because it never existed before, that a lot of businesses just, they probably heard about it, but they don't have a default status quo to think about it. So it really could use a lot more promotion, and tying that to, you know, that low impact entertainment, that low impact music, acoustic, not amplified or whatever, is fantastic. And I didn't know that someone bought St. Roch, so that was news to me. And I think that is all I had to say. I agree with my colleagues about going to the music conversation next, because it is, oh, and lighting, add lighting, because that's come up a lot. Maybe that comes next. And we should keep, you know, a good list of sort of those bigger topics to kind of hack into, so that we kind of know what's coming. Anything else from, I don't see Dave coming back. Likely excuse. No, I'm just kidding, Dave. Yes, Commissioner Hoffman.
I could, since you brought it up, and I don't know whether this is a question to Suja or to Ken, do we have the bandwidth, as they say, to undertake that? When they were talking about wayfinding signs and so forth and business directories, I don't care what city you go to where they have those, they're almost always out of date, unfortunately, because you're dealing with something that has to be kind of constantly updated to be really 100% legitimate. I'm just, and Christy, I know, is the business liaison building that inventory. I'm just wondering, is that something that we should be anticipating a possibility, or something someday when all our 10 slots are refilled?
So, Commissioner, thank you for the question. You may recall that we engaged in our branding and logo. Actually, it was our logo project. And so the logo was selected. We're working through finalizing really our next steps there, but specifically to wayfinding. So that is tied into wayfinding or any kind of branded material that we'll have out there. Even if it doesn't have the logo on any of the wayfinding materials, what we need to do is work out sort of a design manual of this, like a style guide. And so it's a much bigger project than getting out there, here's where the parking lot is, and all the other wayfinding needs that we have. It's important, as you've noted, any city I've worked in where that has been taken on as a project, it's a big undertaking. So the short answer to the question is we don't currently have that bandwidth, but even if we did, we're a couple of steps, maybe a few steps away from taking that bigger project on. We need to finalize our logo and branding process, our scheme, our design guide, and all of the materials that would come with that. This way, we can look to a very consistent methodology as we put materials out there. It will start to inform just about everything we do. And so it's the need is there and we're hearing about it, but I would like to take the time to finish that project first so that we can do it right.
And for purposes of our Economic Development Committee, we're working on the economic development strategy, and we want to be sure that that's included as our action strategy. So once we complete our economic development strategy, we will place priorities on them and move forward from there. But instead of it being a project that isn't active at the moment, it'll be on the list for action in the future. And I think that's what's so important about having an economic development strategy is you talk about all of the tools and then identify which are the most important to start with. And then where do we go from there? So, and we actually haven't talked about our corridor recommendations for the strategy. That'll be next on our agenda. But if it's okay, can we talk about who would be attending as a representative to the stakeholders group for our next two meetings? The first one will be this Wednesday, April 7th at 2 o'clock. And then the next one will be Wednesday, April 21st. The last two meetings were attended by Chair Campbell and Mayor Pro Tem DeToy. And so I was hoping that Commissioners Hoffman and Peterson could join in, which I think would be really appropriate as we talk about music and entertainment.
No, I'm more than willing. I'm smiling only because unfortunately I have a recurrent Wednesday, the first Wednesday every month business meeting, at work that I have to deal with. So now I can take advantage. I'd be love to do the one on the 21st and then trust that Dave can do the one on Wednesday.
Great. And I know he's also stated interest in the music. So I will make sure that he knows that we have him down for that meeting. And in the case that he can't, then I may reach out to see if somebody else can back up.
Happy to be a backup if Dave has a conflict. So you can just let me know. I looked at the dates.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
So that wraps up this item, and we move on to item 8, which is another opportunity for public comment. So anybody out there who's on the line paying attention and would like to weigh in at this point, there's another opportunity to do so now. I see no hands raised. There is at least one person on a telephone call. If you're on a phone line and not on the Zoom call, so that you can't raise your hand, you just need to press *6 and speak up and let us know you'd like to make a comment if that's the case. Last call for public comment at this moment. I'm seeing no hands go up and hearing no one pressing *6 to speak. So I will go ahead and close this public comment segment and we will move on to number 9.
Great.
Economic Development Strategy, Corridors and Gateways recommendation.
Yes. So to continue our conversation, since February, at the February 1st meeting, I provided kind of a background report with some of the planned Hermosa goals and discussions for corridors in general, plus aviation and PCH specifically. And we talked about that the corridors are high visibility and high volume, really views into Hermosa Beach. And we talked about that a lot at our meetings, but also with the stakeholders. And so some of our overall economic development initiatives will include the corridor areas. So they're not a specific corridor initiative, such as business attraction. That's something that early on has been identified as something that should be included in our economic development strategy. So that's not a specific gateway strategy, but business attraction will definitely benefit aviation in particular, but also key PCH vacancies. So that's a given. But the three recommendations that I'd like to make for inclusion in our economic development strategy as a result of all these conversations is, first of all, a beautification program, including gateway entries and identifying funding sources. For purposes of the economic development strategy, we don't have to have it all spelled out with the details. However, there are a variety of funding sources. There are grants, there are other ways that are met the challenge of funding on such an ambitious project such as corridor funding. There are sometimes lighting and landscape districts. There are sometimes business improvement districts, either funded by the businesses or by the property owners. There are specific grants. And there are, once you dive into these issues and you realize who the stakeholders are, and then the funding for what, you don't know what to fund until you know what is needed. And some of what was discussed with the stakeholders is as simple as providing flowering pots that are sponsored by certain businesses to beautify the area. And that's something that they said, well, maybe working with the chamber or maybe just having block leaders to coordinate that. So it doesn't have to be all city funded types of initiatives. But if we have it on the list, then that helps us focus on ways to improve the beautification. The next thing on the list is a facade improvement program. And a facade improvement program is a relatively inexpensive program, sometimes sponsored by cities, sometimes sponsored through grants, sometimes sponsored with dedicated funds for that purpose for an area or citywide. And one of the charms of our city is that it's an older, charming, authentic city. But sometimes part of having that is properties that aren't fully maintained, or that it's time for a paint job, or sometimes a facade improvement. One of the examples that was brought up at a recent South Bay Economic Development Group is that there was a business, I believe it was Yellow Basket restaurant, that took advantage of the city's facade improvement program. And they started with the facade and then did like $1 million worth of improvement. And then the ripple effect of its neighbors was felt, because once a business paints and upgrades, just like in our own neighborhood, when somebody paints their house, then it makes the others look shabby, and it's a positive ripple effect. So a lot of times the relatively small cost for a facade improvement program is multiplied. And it's high visibility way to improve the appearance of the city. So I suggest that that be included in our economic development strategy. And I was talking with our planning team earlier today. There may be architects that are civic minded that sometimes they'll volunteer their time, or sometimes cities will engage in a small contract where they help design professionally, and make recommendations to businesses how they could improve the appearance and freshen up the appearance of their business. So the last one on the list for our economic development strategy inclusion is wayfinding signs. And as mentioned by our Madam City Manager, this is a comprehensive plan. It's a high visibility for not a lot of funding, but it needs to be done right, because those signs not only bring attention to what we're pointing them to, the beach or parking or the downtown district or Pacific Coast Highway or whatever the actual sign is, but it also is representing our city. And so we want it to reflect our vision for the city. But it needs to be included in our economic development strategy, because that's going to be an action plan moving forward. So those are my recommendations for inclusion in the economic development strategy. But I welcome your feedback. And then of course, when we bring all our economic development strategies back together, then we'll have a chance to refine them and identify the priorities.
Question, are you ready for any questions people might have, Christy?
Yes.
All right, welcome back, Dave. And is there any questions for Christy? Christy, I just kind of have one about the overall economic development strategy. Is there any kind of like timeline related to putting it all together? Because I'm thinking forward about when we might bring it back to the full council for an update or something like that. And go ahead. I see you nodding.
Oh, yes, sorry, I was just listening. But yes, so my goal is to finalize these kind of last things that need to be included and bring it back. And I was hoping to bring that back at the June meeting as a list for us to respond to, for us to identify any gaps.
Good.
And then we can decide how best to move forward. If it's the Economic Development Committee that wants to identify the priority and the midterm and the more long-term solutions, or if you want that to be, those discussions to be held at the Planning Commission or City Council level, we can make that plan. But so far we have about, I think with today, we have like 12, 14 initiatives. And these are independent strategies for independent issues to be addressed.
Mm-hmm.
They do not include the overall business friendly actions and the concierge program and the things that the city is doing to facilitate the business community. But independent of that, that's our plan, our strategy for economic development moving forward.
Okay, you bring up a question as you answer that one, and that is, why would the other strategies not be included in the whole plan?
Well, we could say, we call it business friendly initiatives, but it's about 15 things that are already underway that really doesn't have to be a city council priority recommendation, but it should be included in the strategy. But it's kind of a given, like a prelude to these top things we need to work on, because we're already working on those things.
Right. And that's maybe related to my only other question is sort of related to my first question and this interim one. And is this the way you're developing the strategy? Is it based off of a best practice, like example of what every economic development strategy should have, or are we just kind of piecing together the things that we've heard most from people, or both?
So every month when we have talked about what our topic is, we've come back with recommendations for this strategy. It may not be comprehensive, so we'll have our initial list and then we can collectively decide what needs to be added to it.
Okay.
Yes, and then the economic development strategies are different in each city, and some are what is the strategy, what department works on it. You know, some are like 1 or 2 pages. Some are more like our plan Hermosa, where facade improvement program focusing first on this area, or include support of an architect to help design professionally, where it has more bullets. And so we'll start and then we'll build it to make it how it should be for Hermosa Beach.
Okay.
And then we'll bring that back in June. And then you may say, go back to work and work on these 3 things, or you may say, now let's add some meat to it before we bring it back to City Council. But we'll have our list that we've identified as targeted action items for the city.
Great. Yeah. So I know that would help me, because we go back to council and we give updates of our last meeting, Mayor Pro Tem and I. But at some point, it'll be more impactful and meaningful if and when we're ready to bring back something that's more comprehensive that says, look, in order to fuel economic development for Hermosa, we're working on these things, these things, these things, these things. And then together they kind of hit all the right notes. Yeah. So, all right. That's all I had a question about. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just some questions on the facade improvement program. I know that earlier we did the mural and the sign permits that were down and lower in cost. Is there anything else that we can, any other tools in our toolbox besides like a grant, or how else do you fuel kind of businesses reinvesting in their exterior to help draw some people in? Do you have any concrete examples of that, or?
I've seen a few different facade improvement programs. The first one was when I was working in Newport Beach. They trimmed the trees and the buildings were tired looking behind what used to be the big ficus trees. And so that initiated at first it initiated a business improvement district where they got organized. And then there was a grant program where the city did a matching grant and paid 50% for the facades. In that case, they had an architect that was on retainer, and it was about $250 for each one to kind of come up with a couple concepts to help the businesses. Some businesses just said, oh, I'm just going to repaint and landscape. Some did on their own, but some were attracted by the overall initiative. It kind of, sometimes businesses are thinking, yes, I got to do that someday. And then it's like, now's the time. If there's a matching grant program or a sponsor, sometimes there's a sponsor. If there's a new business that comes to town, for instance. So we don't know what that program would look like exactly, but it should be included in our strategy.
Okay. And is there currently a cost for repainting a business? Or is that more of a complex question depending on the size? And
so it could be as simple as paint and contrasting trim. It could be a combination of landscaping. It could be adding accents, or it could be replacing an old ugly sign. So it would be different for each business.
Okay, I just didn't know if the city currently charges some permit or something to paint an exterior. I remember some conversation a few months back about cost and some time.
So that conversation was interesting because generally there's not a cost to paint a building, but in that case, it was a building that abutted our city sidewalk. And so there was a cost because we had to protect the public from that building. So that was kind of a unique case.
Okay. Yeah, especially as we go into our budget discussions coming up, if there's anything that you can think that we can spur anything, you know, in the next few months, any concept that we can get down the pipe, I think that's a good conversation to have as we start our budget talks. So that's all I have. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. That's a good question. I know, like for signage, I think that's usually involves the city and some maybe permitting or whatever. But anyway, all right, great. Anything else? Yes, Commissioner Peterson.
Yes, Christy, thank you for your report. Couple of thoughts. And just to be clear on the dollars, so I think in terms of facade improvement, et cetera, anything that the city could do to waive fees, et cetera, as part of a program or whatever, that makes a lot of sense. I'm curious about essentially spending city or grant funds to improve a private business. You know, given that funds tend to be a little tight and we have projects, is that what cities do as part of the program, or am I hearing you wrong?
So sometimes what will happen is the city will do a matching grant. So if it costs them $8,000 or $10,000 to improve their street frontage, then it would be, there'd be a grant program. Other times, even something as simple as having an architect on retainer. We have some civic-minded, great architects that might agree to do a consultation for, say, $200, $250. It could be as simple as just that, like professional services agreement, to someone who can counsel them on what to do, and then it's up to them to do it.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, as stewards of the public money, that's a fair question to ask. So I just want to get clarity on that. And then the second comment, you sort of, jumped in terms of the question I was going to ask for commissioner items is just our time frame and kind of timeline as a group. As we're I guess an ad hoc and not a forever commission or committee, it would be helpful now that we have the report to then have some sort of countdown of what boxes we have to check or what it looks like meeting by meeting till we're done. Not that I don't enjoy the first Monday of the month with you all, but still, I think having some kind of report or series of report outs back to planning commission or Parks and Rec or city council, whoever. So I'm glad to hear you mention that. I'm assuming that is what we'll be hearing about in June.
Yes.
Okay. I had gotten a question from a couple of residents as well. So I do think it's helpful to, have an appropriate deadline pressure, and with COVID and the shutdowns and some short-term kind of tactical issues combined with waiting on some report back from studies or economic development, now we have that. So I do think it's good to ask those questions of how we turn our ideas into action, and which starts with presenting the ideas and wrapping it up. So I appreciate your focus on that. I'll look forward to seeing that in June. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Yes, Commissioner Hoffman.
Just a couple of, I just realized that Dave lost his connection. What is it, halftime in the championship game? I'm sure you can get an update, but we won't get into that. But a couple of
I was afraid I was going to come back and be the president of the chamber. So
right, well, almost. But we're not, as Christy suggested, way down the road. But I've done a couple of these facade improvements and business improvement districts in the city of LA. And LA has what they call the Urban Design Studio. So they've got a branch of their planning department that sort of can contribute to this. But in both those projects, we ended up with, I think UCLA did one and I think USC did the other. And it was graduate students that basically, as a project, did renderings of before and after of a whole bunch of buildings. in Vermont Square in particular, they were looking for a more unified theme, if you will, for the improvements. But as I think Christy is, yeah, I think we can be optimistic that there are ways to do this that may not require the expenditure of funds that we maybe not have at this point, if we're creative about this.
That would be great. Yeah, Madam City Manager.
Just wanted to share some cities, and I know that Christy is aware of this, and perhaps what Christy can do is also research how other cities fund it. But facade improvement programs that I'm aware of oftentimes comes through the CDBG grant funding, block grant funding, community development block grant funding. So it's not the case necessarily where cities take general fund and set it aside. They are pass-throughs with certain criteria. So if we're able to do that, Christy, do some research on that, and then possibly make some recommendations as both commissioners and council members have noted here and at other times, general fund is very tight. And so we want to mirror programs that are available, but also perhaps try to utilize funding that's designed for that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
All right, great. Any final thoughts before we move on to item number 10? Christy, do you have any final thoughts, or can we move forward?
Oh, no, we can move forward. So thank you for the good feedback and questions. And so the next item is business recovery updates. And we're going to kick this off with Leanne is going to provide an update on the recent health order and the business updates. So hello, Leanne.
Good evening.
Evening.
I did included in the item this evening, we did include a PowerPoint presentation. Standard practice for us is making a couple of updates to those. So again, I won't go through the entirety of the presentation, but I will, if I can share my screen here, provide a couple of quick updates on, hopefully folks can see the map of California here, on the things that have changed since we met last month. So our 4-tiered reopening plan, after many, many months in the purple tier, we have since moved from purple to red and now to the orange tier in the recovery framework. And of course, these elements allow different business sector reopenings and different protocols that are in place. And so starting today was LA County's first day in the orange tier. And that allows for a series of different business sector reopenings. The slide here covers some of them. Bars in particular have been allowed to open outdoors with distancing for the first time in likely nearly a year. I think they were open for a brief period back in May of last year. Restaurants have recently been able to start accommodating indoor dining. That's gone from 25% in the red tier now to 50% capacity within the orange tier. Places of worship can expand their services indoors. I know many of our local places of worship have continued doing their outdoor services, but they are able to go indoors at 50% of their capacity. Our fitness centers have gone from 10% indoor capacity to 25% indoor capacity. And again, I know many of them through the last year have expanded outdoor activities, have gone online, and I think you'll see many of them continuing those, but the ability to also provide some indoor services, I think has been really helpful, and I think everyone's really excited to get back inside. Grocery store and retail increased capacity up to 75%. Same with our hair salons, barbershops, and personal care services. In that circumstance, the personal care services, they are required to only provide services where a mask can be worn at all times. So facials and things like that are still limited. And then the youth and adult recreational sports is another sector where there have been additional reopenings that have been permitted as we move into the orange tier. skip ahead to actually just briefly. I'll note that in March, the council took action again to extend our commercial eviction moratorium. And so we continue to provide updates on that on our website. We're working on getting our frequently asked questions for both the residential and commercial eviction moratoriums updated, and cover some of our new businesses or upcoming businesses. Again, we continue to see a lot of interest in investment in Hermosa Beach and a lot of new businesses that have taken on the challenge of opening during a pandemic. I think last month we were able to share a handful of new business openings, starting with the Stanton, Two Guns, Espresso, the Burn the Ships Electric, Japonica Sushi, Agave Azul, and then Pop Beach Rentals were all ones that opened either in late February or early March. So I think at least 3 of those are located on Hermosa Avenue. So we are seeing a lot more activity on Hermosa Avenue. And I think since we last met, both Agave Azul and Japonica have been able to build out their dining decks. So they are able to also provide some outdoor dining space along with their indoor space. In terms of businesses that are opening soon, they're in different varying stages of their opening process. And I think we've covered some of these last month as well. The Santo Hair Salon is another business on Hermosa Avenue. Mix It Up Cafe, actually Melanie just mentioned to me that this one is no longer, so we'll no longer planning to open. So we are going to remove that one from our list. Permanent Glows, personal care. The Brews Hall, they're on Pier Plaza, taking over the space that was previously Rebel Republic and Mediterranean before that. They're doing their renovations now and are planning to open in May. Fox and Pharaoh's restaurant, I think a revised concept of the Chelsea pub. The School of Dance and Music, I think our planning commissioners are probably pretty familiar with this one, on PCH at I think it's the 400 block. They are currently, I think they currently have a studio in the aviation business, the area there next to Big Lots. I don't know, that may be technically in Redondo Beach, that shopping center there splits between Hermosa and Redondo, but same business. They're opening a new location here in Hermosa, taking over that 400 block of PCH. They've been working on the renovation. So next time you drive by, I think there's some bright green accents on it. It's pretty noticeable. And then My Salon Suite is personal care that is taking over the space in Plaza Hermosa that used to be the Aaron Brothers, I believe. And those are the business updates that we have. We continue to see a lot of interest, a lot of activity. We have also seen a number of existing businesses that have been working on renovations and either expanding their space or remodeling, putting in some new tenant improvements. So a lot of good activity and interest to look forward to. And with that, option screen. If there's any questions you have for me, otherwise I can turn it over to, I think Doug was going to provide a brief update.
Any questions for Leanne? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that we allocated some of the CBDG block grant money to the LA County business grants. Do we have any updates on that process? And
I may ask Christy if she can weigh in on that.
I can answer that. So yes, there was a great response from our Hermosa Beach businesses. 77 applied for the 11 grants. So the business recovery grants, there was a lottery from those 77 that the county conducted. The county has been notifying the top numbers to make sure that they qualify. They've been asking the city to be sure that there's not any ineligibility, and they're building those contracts and in some cases distributing the funds to those businesses. So good news on that. It's not, we don't have a final list of businesses yet, because if there is an ineligibility, or if for whatever reason the businesses don't respond to the county, they might move down to a name below. But yes, that was very successful. More than our surrounding cities offering the same, and a lot of the cities were bigger cities, but we promoted it greatly and got a good response.
Wonderful, thank you.
Just wanted to add that we will, when the final list is available, we will share it with council and commissioners and also make a public announcement through our formal communication channels.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Great. Awesome. Any other questions? Super quick. I think maybe it's Leanne. The Mix It Up, was that one going to be on Pier Avenue, or was that the one, or do we know? You said it's going to not, it went away. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I believe that was on Pier Avenue,
Close
on
to
that first block.
It was just up from Zane's, kind of like where the
Yeah. That's
the burrito place is, kind of in between there, I believe. South or west of the subway and Curious, etc.
Well, I just shout out to all these new businesses opening up during a pandemic. I know some of them probably were somewhere in motion when it all hit, but probably some of them weren't, and they did it anyway. So it's exciting. All right. Thank you, Leanne. And I think we're passing to Doug.
Good evening, everyone. So for the outdoor dining decks and the lane reconfiguration, we're basically at the halfway point of the 6-month trial. So we have formed a group, an interdepartmental group of staff from Public Works, City Manager's Office, Community Development, to sit down and basically summarize all the issues that we've had, and everything we've heard from everybody, and then assess them all, see what could be done very short term, semi-short term, long term, et cetera, to bring something to council for your consideration. So we're right in the midst of that. We had our first meeting last week. We've got another one this week, and we've made some progress. That group will consider not only the on-street dining decks, the lane reconfiguration, but also the entire outdoor dining and retail permit program that's been in place, since this all started, more or less, right? So that's good news, right? I mean, it's halfway point. It's certainly time to bring something to council soon, and so we're going to put something together to bring that. And it'll capture, again, kind of what we've seen so far, what we can do immediately, and then all the potential long-term options. And thank you very much to the chamber for that feedback. So we've, as the weather's been getting better, of course, there's been a lot more activity downtown. And so we've been hearing a lot more comments, good and bad, but trying to capture all of them, sort through for what's constructive. Speaking to the earlier comments, about the couple decks up on Upper Pier that have been kind of sitting dormant for a couple weeks while they're building. We've already put notice out to them to, get things going, so to speak. And so we've talked to them personally and then sent kind of a more formal notice that something needs to be done there soon, or, take it away and regroup if that's what, they need to do. So that's kind of where we are. As far as actual, some of the things we've talked about in the past, the signal synchronization for Hermosa Avenue will be happening over the next couple weeks. It could be as soon as a week. It could take a couple, depending on the equipment out there and the cabinets with the signal equipment. We have ordered some no left turn signs specifically for Hermosa Avenue at 14th Street, but we have a few that we may be able to also place strategically on Pier Avenue if necessary. So we're continuing to monitor and assess. And that is the update from me. To preempt your question, we have taken 56 of on-street parking spots so far with the decks. And so, if you hadn't noticed, there's still decks being built right now. So we've had a lot of interest since, the lane reconfiguration, that additional space. We've had a handful of new decks, quite a few have expanded. And like I said, there's basically 3 in progress right now, with 1 or 2 that have expressed interest, 1 or 2 brand new ones potentially still coming. So that's the update I have, but I'm here for any questions.
Doug, I don't know if you heard public comment at the start of this call this
Yes.
evening. So Laura Pena came on and to
Right.
talk about how we balance parking for those who aren't dining. Do we know yet how that question will be approached in this process?
Not specifically, but we're very aware, and I mean, obviously we talk to Laura off and on, every week, right? And she's had some very good, comments. There's been some other people on Upper Pier that have had, some constructive, feedback. And we're working on it. It's like, I mentioned those 2 specific decks that are kind of in progress right now. We've kind of put a fire under them to, either fill those up or not. But, the issues of utilizing the decks all day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or some combination, sharing them, utilizing other maybe private property parking options to, kind of alleviate some of that. Those are all things we're considering and trying to figure out. Again, it's a challenge of what can be done quickly and what can be kind of put into place for long-term policies. So we're, trying to weed through those and bring something actionable, like I said, to council.
My only other question has to do with, I know we are always looking to our neighbors a lot, and we know that they have done similarly, opened up the door for these dining decks. I think, are we the only beach city that has narrowed lanes to do so?
Well,
yeah. Didn't
yeah.
Manhattan almost close up something for a while?
Yeah, they actually closed a section for a short term. El Segundo has closed a small section of a street for a longer term. So yeah, the narrowing might be unique to us, but we haven't done any full closures. So it's a mix, and we're obviously very much in touch with those neighboring agencies on what their future plans are. And the sense I get is they're all kind of in the same boat right now, trying to figure out what is the next step. What would it take to make this longer, or peel it back, or adapt to the changing landscape. So we're very much in touch with them.
But yeah, well, you anticipated my wraparound question, and I just assume they're having the same kind of debate with their community as we are with ours about the pros and cons, and everybody loves it, but we got to balance it kind of conversation. Okay, very good. Any other questions? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If I remember correctly, with the proposals that were, for the temporary program to take place, a lot of the loss of parking was alleviated if we were to do angled parking, and I know that added the cost immensely. Is that even a possibility on Hermosa Avenue with the width of the roadway, and also on Pier Avenue?
No, and it turned out the geometry just didn't work, and it didn't really add many spots. Yeah, it wouldn't add many, and at this stage, I don't think it would help to add any spots.
Gotcha. I was just thinking more of if it was in the discussion moving forward on solutions, depending on how this program looks in the long run. So.
Oh yeah, I mean it will be brought up, and if it can help, it will certainly be incorporated. But at this stage, it wouldn't be a very good option.
Absolutely, and I just saw those two two decks today that were in construction. So anything would be great for helping those businesses out there to see if they're going to keep it, or now that they're in the yellow tier, they don't need those extra spots exterior. So help the service businesses on upper pier would be great.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. I just heard of echo. Commissioner Hoffman, I think you had your hand.
Well, Doug did what I anticipated. He already covered both of my questions that I had written down beforehand, the inventory and the synchronization question. The only other question was brought to me by someone else to ask on their behalf. What role do the businesses in which the decks are going that aren't using them, did they have any role in the example that was given, the Seymour that's getting that fabulous boat deck in front of it? Seymour's Jewelry obviously is not using that deck. And the question was, and it wasn't from them, don't misunderstand, but did Seymour Jewelry, for example, have a role or have any way in terms of saying yes or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've worked with, in every case, we've asked, applicants to, or required really, some kind of approval from their neighbors in writing. So yes, yeah, nobody's been surprised by this. And we've had little issues with that as things have changed, and we've, kind of adapted, and those are things we're absolutely taking into consideration moving forward, is, how to keep that peace amongst the neighbors and cooperate and share, again, going back to the upper pier discussion, right? So yeah, we've definitely taken that into account.
All right, great. Any final questions? It's no coincidence you have storm clouds over your head, right? Right, Doug? Just like we went into the yellow tier this morning, or the orange tier, excuse me, not the yellow tier. And there was a pretty significant earthquake to kick it off this morning.
That's right.
Okay, so that wraps up that update, and we have, I believe, one more outdoor dining update, or was that kind of rolled into one? Okay. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to figure it out, but there's a lot of models around, so I'm sure there are answers to all of these questions. Okay, so I guess we can move on to public comments. This is the last public comment of the evening. So anybody who's with us tonight or has called in, if you are there and interested in providing a comment, I'm seeing no hands that have been raised. If you're on a phone line, I actually don't see anybody on a phone line unless I can't see all of them, but it's pressing *6 on your phone and just speaking up to let us know you'd like to make a comment. I'm seeing nobody and I'm hearing nobody. So I will go ahead and close public comment this evening, and we will move on to number 12 on our agenda, which is committee member announcements and or suggestions for items on the next agenda. Does anybody like to weigh in? Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
I would just like to announce that Dave Peterson got nominated for the April 7th stakeholder meeting, since he was off the internet. So congratulations, Dave.
Thank you.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, assuming you're available, sir.
I should be. If not, I'll figure something out. But no, I appreciate it's a high honor. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Just let us know, because I volunteered to be your backup if you had a conflict. So
okay, thank you.
All right. If nobody has any thing to say, I just want to make an announcement. I'm reading a book. In fact, I'm almost finished with it. Actually, I'm listening to it. But if anybody is familiar with the books that have, the trilogy of books now, I think, that has been written by Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler. They had a book called Abundance, and then they wrote one called Bold. And last year, they published one called The Future is Faster Than You Think. It's highly reviewed as a must for anybody who's innovating and being an entrepreneur in the present times. And the short, I had a conversation with Suja about it last week, I think it was. And the reason I'm going to recommend it, you might want to take a look at it and see if it sounds interesting. And following our study session where we had the whole council and the whole planning commission, we were talking a lot about parking lately. And this entire book, these are the guys that invented X Prize. So they're really into high tech, exponential technologies that are changing the way we live. And that's not news to anybody. But what's happening is that they've accelerated in their advancement so much, and they're all converging together that Ray Kurzweil, another big futurist, who's quoted in the book saying, we are likely to experience 20,000 years of technological advancement in the next 100 years. And there's a chapter on everything. There's a chapter on the future of mobility. There's a chapter on the future of retail. There's a chapter on, and of course it goes into other areas like biotech is another big advancing technology. So longevity and how people live, how people work. Even though it's very futuristic, the thing I'm taking away from it that to me was new or updated is that we're used to these kind of advancements happening in faster and faster, but really still incremental. So if you'll get a real taste of what things are going to look like in the next 5 years, 10 for sure, but 5 years on some of these mobility trends. And I think it's really important that somewhere in the conversation with the city and with the council that we get some of these data points and the background kind of in the mix. So I just put it out there because it's been a really fun listen, and I've talked to others who've enjoyed it as well. So that's your hot tip for the night. And that's all I wanted to add. So unless there's anything else, I think, yes, go ahead, David.
I hate to follow it up with something pretty mundane, but so be it. The last meeting, we had received a draft executive summary from the Market and Economic Development Study. Do we know when we're going to get the full report? And then also there were numerous questions about who they interviewed and who they did not. So at some point we need to see that list as well. So I don't know what the timing is on that. Christy's nodding her head, so.
I can answer that. So Ken and I have received the draft and have made comments. So we are going to have that final report for sure for our next meeting. And we'll include, it's a lot more comprehensive than what was the presentation of the executive summary last time. So we'll be sharing highlights from that report and providing a copy of the report. In the appendix is a list of the people that were interviewed, as well as their other sources of information, including reading all the stakeholders' minutes from the beginning and our Economic Development Committee minutes. And so they have kind of all their resources that help them get to it, besides the data that are included in the report itself. So we'll have that at the next meeting. We hope to have it this meeting, but we did have comments and we couldn't get them back in time to share it for today's meeting.
Okay, understood. I appreciate your comments and look forward to it. Thank you.
Okay. Final thoughts? All right. Seeing no takers, I'm happy to go ahead and adjourn tonight's meeting. Our next meeting will be on May 3rd, 2021 at 6 o'clock. With that, I will bid you a good evening. Enjoy.
Thank you.